All right, everyone. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Today's guest is Tom Rankin, and Tom has been a movement and fitness professional for over 30 years. And he has worked over 10 years at the Stanford University Health Improvement Program. He currently teaches awareness through movement classes, group classes, and functional integration one-on-one lessons. And he works through the South Bay Network for Somatic Education. Tom has also been involved in mind-body studies with, I believe, his mentor, Mia Siegel. So, Tom, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Scott. It's wonderful to be here. And
I appreciate it.
I like your idea of the aware athlete. And it's kind of like the National Strength and Conditioning Association. They have a slogan, everybody's stronger. And the aware athlete, what I'm thinking of is like, we all have an athlete in us. We're all playing in this game of life. And we all have this athlete that we can become aware of, whether we think we're athletic or not. So
absolutely, yeah.
I like the way that you get that message across.
Well, yeah, I hope it comes across. That's the intention. Yeah, everybody's an athlete. Everybody's seeking something in life and meeting life's challenges. So go ahead.
Yeah, and that's true. We all have these challenges in life. And one thing that we can take advantage of is our ability to learn. That's one of Moshe Feldenkrais's big thing, is how we can meet and overcome challenges is we can learn. We can learn how to create more possibilities, choices for ourselves. So we don't have to feel like we're stuck within a certain challenge. And taking that to the idea of an athlete, I know that you've been working with a lot of athletes, and I've been too, and how this Feldenkrais method helps us to help the athlete learn more about themselves and then really learn how to start coaching themselves, become their own best coach.
Oh, that's excellent. Yeah, that's excellent. Instead of looking for answers from outside yourself all the time, being able to find a wealth of information inside.
And that's it. That's it. Once you develop the ability to, and it kind of goes back to an old Kung Fu episode. Do you remember that old show in the 70s with David Carradine?
Well, I didn't see all the episodes, but I do remember it, yeah.
And in one show, he said, I seek not to know all the answers, only to ask the right question. Mm-hmm. And as a person, as an athlete, if we can learn how to ask really specific, precise questions. If I'm a runner and if I'm always straining my left calf when I run, and if I can ask the right question, well, does it have something to do with the way my feet contact the ground, or does it have something to do with maybe the way I swing my arms? So we can start to ask these little questions and then pay, like you said, the aware athlete. Then we can use our awareness to discover the answer after we ask the question.
That is fantastic. So can you give us a little bit of background on your own fitness journey? I know that I'm thinking from what I've read that there was a time in your life when you were more operating on the conventional cultural definition of fitness, things that can be measured, and mm-hmm. power and speed and cadence and endurance and duration and things like that. And is that true? Did you start off, with that conventional mindset about what fitness and health are?
Yeah. It's really, really interesting. The first thing was just when the fitness boom started in the 80s, we had Nautilus equipment, we had Stallone and Arnold as kind of
Yeah.
the role models for creating this buff muscular body, and that's how I got started in fitness, was actually teaching people how to use the Nautilus machines, because that was the big thing in the early 80s. A big change came from thinking not from a bodybuilding perspective, but more in an athletic strength coach perspective. And then starting to study, get my CSCS certification, which is a strength and conditioning coach certification. And then, like you said, looking into the measuring, the keeping track, the numbers of fitness, and looking at the different types of workouts and kind of going by the numbers. I got really into cycling. So for a phase into cycling during the off season, it was nice. I could go on a spinning and indoor bike, and I can focus on just working on cardiovascular. What the distance athletes call it long, slow distance.
Yeah.
So then I would have my numbers and things all kind of geared up that way. And then as it got more toward the nice season, when I would be doing more mountain biking, then I would ramp up the intensity and work with lactate threshold and those type of things.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference now is taking more of a Feldenkrais perspective and just asking the questions inside myself. I had a few different injuries that made running really difficult, and it was frustrating for a number of years because I would start running and then I would get an injury to my left foot or lower leg, and then it would be hard to even walk.
Oh, yeah.
So recently during COVID, I thought, well, I'm not able to go to the gym and I want to do more. I want to move more. It's nice in California to do things outside.
Yeah.
So let's play around with running a little bit again. But instead of thinking, okay, I'm going to do a run walk to start with, and I'm going to run for a minute and then I'm going to walk for 5 minutes. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by walking. And if I'm feeling good enough, I feel like running a little bit, I'm going to run. And then if it feels light, if it feels easy, I'll continue it. As soon as it doesn't feel light or easy or pleasant, as soon as I don't like it or I'm not paying attention to it, then I stop and I walk for a little bit and I give myself a break. Kind of like an awareness through movement lesson. You do a little, you rest a little. You do a little bit, you rest a little bit. And then the fun thing was running, and this is something I learned from Mia Siegel, is, well, instead of focusing, and with me, it's the left ankle, the left foot. So instead of focusing my attention there, thinking, oh my God, I hope this holds up. I hope I don't blow anything out on this run.
Yeah.
I was thinking, oh, my arms are swinging really nice when I run, and they feel really good when I run. So you know what? I'm just going to focus my awareness on my arms and the swinging of my arms, and I'm going to let that lead me, and I'm going to let the rest of me just follow. Just listen and go with what my arms are saying. And then it was a completely different experience. Then all of a sudden, I didn't have to think about my feet. My feet were just hitting where they needed to hit, where they needed to go. And everything just felt like it was going really smoothly. And then, again, before I would hit my limit, before it became unpleasant, before I had difficulties, I would just stop. It would be like, oh, that felt really good. That was really enjoyable. Okay, that was enough for today. I'm good.
Yeah.
So,
So there's a lot in that, because people will say, I can do something or I can't do it.
yeah.
And it's like a black and white, I can do it or I can't do it. but you didn't say, well, I can go out and run for an hour or I can't.
It's thinking. This is the other thing I like about thinking like an athlete, because athletes don't work out. When I was playing high school basketball, I didn't work out on the basketball court. We practiced.
Yeah.
And when you practice, and Mia Siegel says this a lot, as a matter of fact, it was what Moshe called his Awareness Through Movement book in Hebrew. If you translate it correctly, it's refining abilities. Practicing, that's why we practice, right? We refine abilities. So the mindset with the running was, I'm not going to do it as a workout. I'm not going to burn 700 calories. That's not my goal. I'm not going to force myself to complete this specific thing. I'm going to run as a practice, and I'm going to see if I can get the quality a little bit nicer and make the running a little bit more pleasant. Oh, maybe I hear my feet hitting the ground lighter. Oh, that's nice. So with that practicing in mind, and the nice thing about refining abilities is it goes on forever.
Yeah.
You know, even the very best athletes find something they could do a little better. Even Michael Jordan, when he came into the NBA, was amazingly accomplished, but he thought, you know what, my free throw shooting could be better. I'm seeing guys on the team here who shoot free throws much better than I do. I'm going to put a little more time. I'm going to practice my free throws more. And he became a very good free throw shooter in his career. So the idea of practicing is so helpful, not to get you stuck into a certain box, thinking that you have to do a certain amount in a certain time and if I don't get 5 miles running done, then this is a waste. Then I blew it. I blew my workout and I failed.
Yeah.
No, you know, if even if you did half that and you said, you know what, this run felt better. This was one of the best feeling runs I ever had. Not only did I enjoy it after I was done, but I was enjoying myself in the beginning of the run when I normally don't really like it that much because I haven't found my groove yet. I was able to find that groove right away and enjoy the whole thing.
Yeah,
And
it
then
takes quite a while to find your groove sometimes. You find towards
and that's the interesting thing when you as you tap into your awareness, you find you can hit that groove sooner. Because now you're mentally focused. You're mentally focused on what you're doing, and your mind is leading the activity. So you're finding that flow much quicker than having to wait for it to fall into place while your attention is someplace else, like maybe listening to your iPod.
and something that you observed or felt during the end of a run, you could carry that observation into the next one too.
Oh yeah.
So I saw that in one of your articles you wrote or referred to, it's better to do 5 repetitions well than 20 repetitions poorly. But I might add to that, there's the beauty in doing only one movement really well. If you can only do one movement really well, that's wonderful. And you'll be able to do 2 movements then.
Oh yeah. And simply, you know, for people starting a fitness routine, if you could only walk to the refrigerator and back, but you can do that well, that's your starting point. And those were 10 really good steps. And you can build on those 10 pain-free good steps. And there's stories of people who just started very modestly like that. And just by doing a little bit more and adding more when they were able to work up to running marathons. And I know had one person I started with, she couldn't even turn on the exercise bike and ride it. It was too much. We had to start with her just riding the exercise bike with it off for a few minutes. But over the period of 6 months, she ended up walking a 5K race with her daughter, one of those 5 events, and
Yeah.
and not by killing herself,
Yeah.
just by being consistent and doing a little bit every day. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that thing of quality of movement really applies to rehab. Um, you haven't been doing something, you've gotten something broken, whatever it is, and now you want to get back to what was your normal capacity if you can. And the doing a few quality movements, that's really awesome. That is a great starting point.
Yeah. Yeah. And then and that's the wonderful thing about what we do with this Feldenkrais method, is we teach people how to recognize quality.
Yeah. And
So,
and I think if you can do that, if you can take one quality movement, it produces an experience inside of you where there's a knowing. Now
mm,
I know this is good. I know I can do it. That kind of feeling. One movement is so much bigger than one movement if it's done well.
yeah. Yeah. From what you're saying, a squat is a great example of that. A lot of people have a belief that they can't squat. Every time you're getting in and out of a chair, you're squatting.
Mm-hmm.
So once you teach somebody that they can actually get in and out of a chair in an easy, effortless way, then for one thing, they're going to get out of the chair more because it's not drudgery and it's not a supreme effort to get out of the chair. So you're more likely to get out of the chair. But then you realize that this movement is possible, that you can continue to refine this movement. So you can add to it and you can build on it, and quality is always first. And that's where a lot of runners, and where I in the past have made my mistake, is I wasn't running in a quality way, but I had goals and things I wanted to accomplish, and I pushed myself through, like a lot of people tend to do.
Yeah.
And then you end up with pain and injury, and of course you quit. So when you focus on the quality and keep with the quality, it's very pleasant. It's a very enjoyable sensation. And now I used to dread having to go out and run, but now I enjoy it because it feels good. I kind of look forward to my running, and I know I don't have to punish myself with it. For if it's not going well that day, then it's more walking than running. If it's
Right.
going really well, then it's more running than walking.
Right. Right. So it's a pleasure to feel yourself moving forward without feeling inwardly straining at all. So you mentioned a couple of injuries, and how were those turning points in your view of movement and fitness? Did
Oh,
you?
that's the big life-changing injury was when I just wrecked myself on my bicycle. I didn't get the back wheel put on quite right.
Ooh.
And things always happen when you're going downhill at 40 miles an hour. And
Oh
that
boy.
tire just slipped and I was just tossed. And it was, it was a week in the hospital and a very long rehab recovery. And that's when I realized that movement is more than just performance. Movement is life. Because when you're having difficulty moving, when you can't get out of the bed to even do something like pee, it's amazing how difficult life is when you're dependent to have somebody bring something to you that you can pee in, or somebody help you out of bed to safely get to the toilet and pee.
Yeah.
I mean, life it's all about peeing and somebody helping. It's extraordinarily difficult. So it just that just opened my mind. Okay, I want to work with movement, but in a bigger, broader way. And I wasn't sure how to do that until I kind of fell into the Feldenkrais method by accident. My wife wanted to learn to play violin. Her violin teacher said she needed to soften her hands and arms. There was a Feldenkrais workshop in Berkeley called Softening Your Hands and Arms. And that 1-day workshop, I was just so completely fascinated by this because I have a plate in this shoulder because the clavicle was broken. It never healed from the accident. And I didn't think it was ever going to function well again. I was pretty happy. It was functioning pretty good and I could do most things I want. But after that 1-day workshop, my left arm was moving every bit as good as my right arm was, and they're both functioning better than they ever had before. So that really caught my attention.
Yeah. So after you have an experience like that, you almost have to go in the other way the road branches off if you're at a fork.
Yeah. It's like, okay, this is amazing. I don't know why it works. I don't know how it works, but something definitely happened here. And maybe this is what I'm looking for. Maybe this is the way of taking movement and using movement for more than just improving performance, but improving the very quality of life itself. And that was one of Moshe's goals, was
Yeah.
how could people learn how to improve the quality of their life?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so beneficial, but also much more profound than doing 2 more push-ups.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It because it's a process. It's a process that you can use with any activity that you would like. And actually, I'm using a lot of what I've learned from me and Leora from MBS with writing music. You know, and the same thing. You know, when you like running, if you want to run faster, you tend to tighten up and force and.
Yeah.
But a good sprinter knows that, you know, once you start tightening up like that, you're putting the brakes on, you're slowing yourself down. So that the key
Exactly.
is to stay very soft and very relaxed while you do it. So you're not interfering with your speed. Well, it's the same thing. Playing guitar, you may be playing this really fast riff, but if you're kind of grunting and groaning, it affects your playing, the quality of the tone, and also the speed that you can play with. So it's just amazing how you can take this Feldenkrais method and apply it to any and every aspect of your life.
Yeah. The difference between hurrying and going fast. So you mentioned sprinting there because that is actually, of all the forms of running, that's the most muscular, but you have to be
Yeah,
very relaxed to do it at the same time,
yeah.
because you can't do anything that in sprinting, your cadence is faster than it is at any other time, because your cadence and your stride leg both have to be
Yeah,
up there at maximum. Or,
exactly.
some people will emphasize one a little bit more than the other, but yeah, so that's that fine line, that little balance there between.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's wild because you think like Michael Johnson's a great example because he was so good in the 2 and the 400, and that's when, you know, lactic acid is starting to build up and it's very hard to keep form. But he was just a master of that, and it looks like he's breaking away and putting on the back burners and big speed. But in reality, he slows down much less than everybody else. Everybody else is fatiguing and slowing, and he's holding more of his top speed. Even
Yeah.
though it looks like he's burning on his speed, he's actually losing less speed than all the other runners
Yeah.
because he just runs in such a beautiful way. It's
Yeah.
just beautiful. I love watching videos of him running. It's just so
Yeah.
graceful.
Yeah. He's just saw a presentation on that the other day. I guess he's not at his top speed the last 100 or whatever it is, but he's not slowing down very much. Yeah.
Oh,
And he
very
really
little.
does pull away from everybody at the end.
And they measured his heart rate during one practice, and his fastest times during the practice were his lower heart rates when he was running.
That's amazing too.
Which is wild. Yeah. So, less is more, by having less muscular tension as he ran, more speed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were speaking about taking your awareness away from your feet. Now, at some time you could have taken your awareness toward your feet. But at that time you took your awareness away from your feet. You were on your arms here. That's where your awareness was. And that your arms help you to move your core. So people talk an awful lot about core strengthening. And they talk about how runners must do a strengthening program, which is, the Tarahumara don't do that. Really, most of the greatest African runners don't. They're getting a little bit more, so they do more Western things, but they don't do very much of that. And certainly, what seems to be kind of silly is doing a static plank for running, because you never are in that position. And people talk about symmetry. I was thinking about symmetry today. If you wanted to be perfectly symmetrical and you put your body in a perfectly symmetrical position, then you can't move. Because whenever you move, something's different on the left side from the right. They're doing complementary things instead of totally symmetrical things.
Yeah.
And
go ahead. And I totally agree with that, because we need to think we're this entire organism that is working together. And you watch the best athletes, and part of the reason why it's beautiful to watch them run or do whatever sport they're doing, swim, is because all of them, you can see that they're using they're orchestrating the movement. And Mia gave us a great example recently in one of our mentoring sessions about we can think of ourselves like an orchestra. And let's think about running like playing a particular symphony, maybe Beethoven's Fifth. The awareness we have is the conductor. So now, if we want the fifth to play in a beautiful way, our conductor has to make sure the orchestra is playing together and everybody's playing their part well. And this is kind of getting into that ab example. So let's call the abs the drums. And now all of a sudden the drums and the percussions think that they got to carry the load and they have to do the bulk of the work. So now all of a sudden you have these thundering drums and percussions, and you can't hear the flutes or the woodwinds. It's just drowning everything out. And the same thing, if you're holding your abs super, super tight when you're running, and we're talking about Michael Johnson and running and flowing and not creating unneeded tension, that's the same thing's going to happen. So when we can learn how to use our awareness, like a conductor learns how to use the orchestra, and then you mentioned, we can spotlight different things on our attention. We can spotlight the use of the arms, or we can spotlight how the feet are contacting the floor. We can put our awareness these two places, or we can just feel the flow of all of us. We can diffuse it into a little flashlight, or we can make it like a lantern so we can feel all of us. And we can even put a flashlight on one part and kind of feel how that reacts to the rest of us, the lantern to the other part. So this use of awareness is where we find our answers. That's where we're going to find the ways we can improve.
Yeah. And I almost think that a lot of times you actually have your awareness in two places. You have the global awareness, and then the spotlight awareness. So
Yeah.
they kind of, if you can do both at once, then you're immediately going to see how this spotlight awareness affects the global condition.
Yeah, because we do have patterns, and I taught a ATM class last weekend, and it was interesting because we were lying on our stomach, and we had our toes kind of on the floor and the heels up toward the ceiling, and we started by pushing with the toes, and like you said, spotlighting that, but being aware of the pattern, how it went through the top of us, and then comparing that to, well, what about if we straightened the knee? So if we put our attention on starting the movement, straightening the knee, spotlighting that, how does that change the pattern? Does that pattern go up through you in a different way? Does it create a different sensation? Is it easier for you? Not as easy for you? And then, finally we because a lot of people aren't really aware of the hip joint. So we started the movement from the hip and feeling how when the hip opens, the knee comes off the floor, the heel lengthens.
Yeah.
And then people realized once they got the big muscles and joints involved with the movement, then all of a sudden something was flowing through the rib cage into the shoulders. And they were feeling more of themselves becoming involved. And then as the bigger muscles become involved with the movement, now all of a sudden people who are feeling strain in the bottom of the foot or the calf by just pushing with the foot, we're noticing, you know what, my foot doesn't have to do too much when the glutes and the hip flexors and the bigger muscles in my center are playing a part in this, then everything's blending and working together in a very nice way.
Yeah. Ideally, that's what happens when you run. Your core is moving well, and you don't have to. Ideally, you can once in a while because there's some important points there. But ideally, you don't have to pay much attention to the way your foot lands because it's already landing in a really good position in relation to the whole.
Yeah. And you just notice, because then all of a sudden, and Feldenkrais wrote about this. He wrote, when somebody is using a quality movement, even if they're producing a lot of power, they don't feel the sensation of effort or strain. Because when you have all the muscles working together evenly and cooperating, one muscle's not doing too much, so you don't feel strain. You don't feel effort. It feels easy. And many athletes have said that, after hitting a long home run or breaking a world record in a sprint, they said, oh my God, that was my easiest run all day. Everything was just flowing together perfectly.
Yeah. So many awareness through movement lessons start with a part of yourself. And you move that. And most of the time, so often, people will just move that part. Now, they were never asked to constrain the rest of themselves, but they just move that part. And then the lesson evolves into where they integrate that with the rest of themselves. But it doesn't occur to them very often to integrate the rest of themselves with that movement to start with. Because that's kind of the way we are.
Now you're getting into one of my favorite things about this method. And when you think of it, awareness through movement. So we're training our skill of awareness through these classes and these lessons. That's the goal of this. We want to be more skillful at being aware of paying attention to what we're doing, how we're doing something through. So we're using movement. Movement is the language that we're using for our awareness. Okay, so with this language, Feldenkrais is considered a somatic form of movement, of activity. It's a mind-body thing, and Feldenkrais knew the two were one, that you can't separate them. So what we can think of it in a way, we can look at it like a computer. A computer has hardware, it has software. Your software is the operating program of the computer. You need both. If you don't have the hardware, then I can't punch in the things I need to put in the computer to make it go. And if I don't have software, then nothing's going to work. Well, we can think of our body as our hardware. And then Feldenkrais called it the self-image, but we could even use the word mind. The mind is our operating program. It's our software program.
Mhm.
Okay, so how do we get these two parts of ourselves to interconnect and communicate with each other in a nice way? We use the language of movement. So with movement, and what you said with the thinking, right? So I'm doing this movement and I'm thinking, and the teacher asks a question, what are your shoulder blades doing? Then all of a sudden I'm noticing my shoulder blades can slide. They can slide along the ribs as I lengthen my arms, and it's creating a new sensation. And then all of a sudden, my thinking is creating hardware changes in the brain. I'm connecting new neurons together by this act of moving, much like a child would do as they begin to learn and put movements together. So this is just so incredibly rich that we can use a movement to teach either way. We can do a movement that we feel through the body, communicate, make changes in the brain, but we could also make changes in our thinking about things too. And just little things like looking up and down and thinking, oh, if I use my pelvis, it's much, much easier to look up and down. I don't feel a strain in my neck.
Yeah.
So that makes life easier. If I can remember, if I can get my pelvis more involved in the little everyday things that I do, then now I'm not feeling the strain in my back and in my neck, and my quality of life improves.
Right.
So that's the really cool thing about the awareness through movement lessons is we are working with the mind, we are working with the body, we are strengthening the ability of that communication. And then we're also developing our skill of awareness. So I can use this awareness when I'm playing guitar. So I could play with higher quality, a better tone without feeling strain on my shoulders or my wrists. Or I can take it out on my run, and I can shift my awareness to find the things that I can do to make my run feel more pleasant and easier to do. And Moshe, that was one of his disappointments. Jerry Carson spoke of this, that one of his disappointments was people didn't take what they learned on the floor from his lessons and take that out to their everyday activities and the things they love to do.
Yeah.
Because that was his intention.
Yeah. So you have to be intentional to do that, but that connection sometimes doesn't get made. But what you were expressing there, where you can take awareness into any realm, is really, that's being human. I mean, that's being human as we're meant to be human.
Yeah.
That's taking advantage of our ability to learn and have greater awareness than any other animal. And so what you mentioned there, you can go at it from either end here, because the body and the brain are one. You mentioned the term mind. I don't know if we'll get into that or not, but that's a huge subject, But yeah. But so we could look at mindset. So if I first of all, awareness is so applicable to everything. Second, the method, because we say the brain and the body are one, is so practical because it gets you out of just being in the head. And then we could talk about something that's so important, I think, is mindset. And if you learn that you could do something that you didn't think you could do, or do it much better than you thought you could do it, which you were describing with your shoulder injury there, all of a sudden you could move that much better than you thought you could. But if you learn that, it changes your mindset about life. Or if you have a very positive mindset about life, you're probably going to end up exploring more things and learning, how you can do things better. Now, could you comment on mindset and how that works both ways?
Yeah, mindset. It's interesting, mindset, right? You set the mind. So
I just say the mind. Yeah.
yeah, but it's, are we locked into a certain type of thinking? And we spoke about it about a little bit earlier, where some people just don't think themselves as being athletic, and I'm clumsy and I'm coordinated. And that's a belief, that's the way they have thinking about themselves. So already you have really big limitations you put on yourself. It's like, well, I would like to do that. I would like to go running with my friends, but I'm such a klutz. I'll trip and I'll have problems. I'll never keep up. So one of the great things about this method is there are things built into it. And making the impossible possible, making the difficult easy. There's a lesson where you
Beautiful.
put your head up toward your head. And by the end of the lesson, you're sitting and you just take your foot and put it on your head like you're a 3-year-old kid.
Yeah.
For most people, it's something they don't think they ever would be able to do. But by this process of learning, what you're learning, it's your beliefs and it's your thoughts that are limiting you, that are putting the brakes on you, and your body isn't limiting you. It's what you think your body can do, and what you think your body is capable of doing is what is limiting you. So, but by using this particular process, by going slow, by using awareness, by using attention, um, by asking questions about what you're doing, how you're doing, you're opening yourself up to new possibilities, to new solutions. And it's amazing how the movement correlates with the thinking, because once your movement changes and once you create these new possibilities and choices for yourself, you also tend to follow there at the same place emotionally and mentally.
Yeah. So a positive mindset just opens the door to everything.
It does. And you just, it's interesting because we stick ourselves, we get ourselves stuck. And sometimes the easiest way to feel yourself becoming stuck is during one of these movement lessons.
Yeah.
You're moving, and you're stuck, and you just don't know what to do going further. And this is where Mia Siegel is an absolute master, because she sees the whole pattern of the person, and she sees what's possible that they haven't thought of. But she doesn't tell them what to do. What she does is she asks certain questions that kind of gets them curious and get their curiosity. And then with these questions, well, can you move your knee maybe a little more? And what happens when you move your knee a little bit more? Oh, your weight shifts. Can you feel how your weight shifts? And then the person starts to putting it together, and then lo and behold, now they're unstuck. So this process that we use to keep ourselves from feeling stuck moving, we can learn how to use the same type of process to keep ourselves stuck, get ourselves unstuck in another situation. I'll give you a friend of mine is a really good example. And sometimes, if you find you're doing this and you get stuck, and if you go in a different direction and explore playing in a different direction, and then you go back, You find, oh, I'm unstuck. I learned something from here that I can use here, so I can do a little more. Okay, so how do you use that going in a different direction in life? Well, her son and her husband would never sit down and eat with her. Or what she would try to do is get them to, and she'd yell and scream, come on, let's have a family dinner. Let's go, let's have a family dinner. And it's like, wait, let me finish this chore. Wait, let me finish this video game. You know, they're always putting her off. So she decided one day, I'm going to go in a different direction. I'm not going to yell and scream at these guys. So what she did is she made dinner and she just sat down by herself and quietly ate. And then all of a sudden, these guys are noticing something's different. And within 5 minutes, they were both sitting and eating with her.
Wow.
So you know, the one method just wasn't working. You know, the more you would try to get them to come eat, you know, the more they were going to resist it, and it became a struggle. But just by, okay, I'm going to take a different direction with this. I'm going to take a different tack with it. And it comes right out from the Feldenkrais handbook, right? She just took something she did on the floor and applied it to a real life situation.
Yeah, let's see what would happen if I tried something else.
Yeah, I'm not gonna yell at these guys. I'm just gonna sit and eat quietly, and let's see what happens. I know what happens the other way. Let's see if something happens differently this way.
I have an interview coming up with someone who was a beginning runner compared to someone else she was running with on these trails, a couple guys. And so she said, you know, I don't know if I can keep up with them, but it's all right if I get tired, I'll just stop. So that was a good attitude. So she tried it out, and she reaches the peak of this summit and looks behind, and there's nobody there. And she wonders if they took a different route, or in a couple minutes they come, you know, up the trail, and she has discovered that something they gave her a nickname for. Her name was Hillary. They call her Hillary Goat from then on.
Hillary Goat, that's great.
Yeah, and so she discovered something she didn't know.
Yeah, and the thing is she said to herself, I'm going to take it at my pace. I'm not going to put pressure on myself to keep up. I'm not going to try to do something a certain way. I'm just going to do what I do.
Yeah.
And what she did was better than what anybody else did.
Yeah.
To her surprise. And
it turned out that way throughout her career.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that's, you know, that's a nice thing when you're engaging yourself in the process of doing something, and being aware is a Zen-like activity. Once you put your awareness into something, you're in the here and now.
Yeah.
So you're not thinking about whether you're going to be able to keep up. You're not thinking about, am I going to die during the last mile? What you're doing is you're just totally in the process, in the moment of what you're doing, which kind of frees you up. You're not putting any extra stress or pressure on yourself. You're just going with what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of times we have to be doing two things at once, because she was running with the guys, but on the other hand, she was just, you know, doing what she could do. And that's kind of two things at once. It's in the midst of something that has to be a little goal oriented. I mean, if you run up that mountain, you're going to have to go back down. Nobody's going to carry you back down. And yet she was in the process, you know. Very important.
Barry Bonds told a great story about being in the process. And I can remember it was spring training and he was at the Giants camp and they were asking what he thought about when he was going up to hit, you know, and he would say, well, the process starts before I even go up to hit. I'm watching the pitcher and I'm looking for little tells. Like if he does something a little different when he throws the curve as opposed to throwing a catch ball, fastball. And usually I could catch something. I could catch something that he's doing that's going to tip off what kind of pitch he's going to throw. And then when he is on the on deck circle, he has a process that he does so he can just kind of feel himself integrating, getting things together. And then he just stays with the process moment by moment. So he's never thinking, oh my God, there's two guys on, I could put ball game away right now. If I get a big hit right now, we can win this thing. We need to win this thing to get in. No, his head's not there. His head is in the moment of what he needs to do at that particular time in the moment. He doesn't jump ahead of himself. He's not looking at outcomes. He's just staying in the process.
Mhm.
Each moment, from the dugout to the on deck circle into the batter's box, and he's just not jumping ahead. He's just where he is, completely in that process at that time, and it worked amazingly well for him.
Yeah. Yeah. And that, again, that's that thing of balance, because the score affects what the process is at the time. If there's 2 seconds left in a basketball game and you're behind by 1 point, if you don't score, you lose.
Yeah.
So you're obviously going to take a shot within the next 2 seconds, but you're still going to stay in the process as best as you can.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you do have to be aware of what's happening with the game and the situational thing in the game.
Williams, go ahead.
But at the same time, you want to keep where you are, and you don't want to project yourself ahead.
Yeah.
And what makes the great athletes is Michael Jordan's thinking, I want the ball, you get me the ball, I'm taking this last shot.
Yeah. Now,
So
that's an amazing mindset right there. It's not a mindset everybody has. And now we're into something kind of interesting, I think. Maybe just a brief digression here, but Muhammad Ali, I'm the greatest. I shook up the world.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Well, yeah. And Liston was seen as like unbeatable. I mean, he just destroyed other fighters. Nobody could just be in the same ring with him. So, here's this brash young kid, and everybody thought he was just going to get killed. But Ali had so much belief and faith in himself, that he was talking trash, even before the fight started.
yeah. George Foreman actually said he became friends with him later, but he's not the kind of guy you'd want to take on a fishing trip. He talked too much.
Yeah. Part of his personality. But the other thing is, he got that from the professional wrestlers, and he knew if he talked a big game and if he talked a lot of trash, more people would be interested in the fight. It would be a bigger event, and he would make more money. So he kind of did it for self-promotion.
Yeah, and to discourage the other guy.
Yeah. And also because people would either pay to want to see him win, or they would pay to want to see him lose.
Yeah.
Because you loved him or hated him. But either way, you wanted to see him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's extraordinary talent. But like you say, extraordinary belief in himself. Talk about Tom Brady. He doesn't talk trash like Ali did.
No.
But he's got that same extraordinary belief. It's just amazing, actually. You really think about that. I wouldn't call Muhammad Ali the most humble person in the world. And I think I could qualify that though, because obviously he did take coaching. And And I think a humble person, a non-humble person, is someone who doesn't take coaching. They just can't they can't change. You know, they're rigid. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
Well, it's just kind of interesting, the different roles, and also once you're talking about a level of athlete like Ali or Tom Brady, who becomes more than just an athlete. They're also a celebrity and a role model and a spokesperson as sorts. So Ali was just really speaking for a lot more than just boxing.
Yeah, I'm so impressed with some of the stands he took, and he was willing to pay the price for taking them.
Yeah, yeah.
Went to prison and could have ruined his career, and maybe did ruin his career. But and Tom Brady, what's very interesting is he seems to have brought he doesn't have the greatest quarterback skills that of any quarterback, the best arm, the most accuracy of any quarterback to ever play the game. He certainly doesn't have the greatest foot speed, but he seems to bring that dedication that he has. He seems to bring it to the whole team.
Yeah, yeah.
Just
Mia Siegel has that wonderful saying, which is yes, we can. Yes, we can. And that's what Tom Brady brings. Here's a guy who's won Super Bowls, who's come back from big deficits. And Joe Montana was very similar too. Mm-hmm. There's a lineman who tells a great story of Joe Montana and his leadership, that the Niners were down, their time was running out. They needed a score. And Montana's looking around and goes, "Hey, there's John Candy. John Candy's watching us. That's John Candy, the comedian on the sideline. Isn't that wild? Oh, that's crazy." You just said something to lighten everything up. So you got everybody to laugh, everybody lighten up. And then he said, "Guys, we've done this before. Let's score, end the game, and go home." And then that was it. They just finished off the game. And Brady's that same way, because he's done it. He's done it many, 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 many times. And people have such a belief and faith in him. And Brady has faith in himself because he knows that he's going to put the time in to prepare himself. So even though he's not the fastest, doesn't have the strongest arm, he's going to know what the defense is doing. He's going to know where the defense is vulnerable. He's going to know how he could exploit the defense.
Yeah, very. Can you, so you've worked with a lot of people, helped a lot of people, coached a lot of people. Can you comment on the value, the importance of leadership in this day and age, and what you do in anything?
Yeah, the cool thing about leadership and the exciting thing about leadership is when you see people take charge of themselves. And I'll give you something that Mia also says a lot, is who's the boss. So when you get people to realize that they're the boss, they're in charge, and they're responsible for themselves, and they can make their own decisions, and they can use their awareness to answer the questions they're looking for, that's the exciting thing. And when you see people take this and apply that into their life, so they have a higher quality of life, more enjoyment out of life, that's that. And so in a lot of ways, it's I feel like I'm kind of like a guide. If we're going hiking and we're going up to the summit, I'm not going to carry you up there.
No.
But, I can guide you, and I can say, okay, we got rocks that are loose in this part coming up. So you may want to be careful with your footing here because it's easy to slip. But that's the wonderful thing about the Feldenkrais method. What we're doing is we're giving people an experience. We're providing this experience where they can go through this experience and they can learn a little bit more about themselves, how they like to do things, how things are pleasant for them, and then hopefully carry these skills that they developed in our class and put them to use in any way they see fit.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is leadership, helping them make that connection.
Yeah, and in fitness, because in fitness, fitness leaders think that they have to motivate. You have to motivate the people because you got to work out hard to get results and you got to get this stuff done. And if people are motivated, they're more likely to do it. And I'm thinking, well, what if we teach people how to be aware of what they do so they can do something in the way that they enjoy doing it, so they can motivate themselves and they can enjoy it themselves. So you don't have to yell and scream at them and inspire them. They can say, oh, okay, I'm going to take a nice walk today. And you know what? Today I'm going to be aware of what happens. Well, all this core stuff and talking about cores. So what does my core do? What's the relationship to the pelvis and the rib cage and the shoulder blades when I walk? How can I find that nice way of doing? And what's the answer to that? How can I find a way of doing that that's enjoyable for me? And that's it. Once you get people there, then all of a sudden something mundane like you're walking to get a little exercise, instead of being mundane, it's all of a sudden pretty interesting because you're finding out new things about it. You're finding new things about yourself that you didn't know maybe until that moment.
Yeah. And able to move your attention around so that use one example, moving the eyes around. So you're out there walking. What if you just look straight ahead all the time? Or what if you move your eyes and, hey, I saw that tree.
Yeah.
Or that stream. Makes a big difference.
Yeah. Well, when I look down at my feet at the ground, do I feel more or less balanced? How do I feel when I look straight ahead? How does my stability and balance feel there? If I look up, how do I feel there? Is my head free? Can I move my head in any direction without losing my balance? Or does it feel like everything is rooted together in some way?
Yeah.
That there's so, as Mia says, there's so much that we can do with movement. There's so many variations. There's so many ways we can play with it. You can live to be 200 years old and still find new ways of exploring your walking or running.
Yeah. And Mia is still teaching at how old is she now?
Mia is probably around 90 years old. And yeah, if people are interested, you can go to MBS, and she's actually doing Zoom sessions. So you can sign up at MBS. They keep the sessions small. There's about 6 people in them. And then you can go through this process with Mia. This last week, we had somebody in class who broke their ribs. They fell and broke their ribs. And I would have thought you can't do much with somebody with broken ribs. Well, Mia just showed us there's a whole bunch you can do with somebody
that would be
with
interesting.
broken ribs, even on Zoom. And it was really an amazing experience.
Yeah.
So,
I would like to see that. That'd be very interesting because I've worked with people with broken ribs who are also a little bit broken about life mentally.
yeah.
And even touching gently anywhere near there, the next day they would say they were in terrible pain because I mean, you can definitely think that you can't do much with someone with broken ribs.
Yeah, and there's a whole process she uses, and part of it is you don't go there to the ribs, and you put the person. First thing was finding a comfortable position, was lying on the other side, and then moving something like the arm and how the arm and the shoulder blade can move.
Yeah.
And that's not bothering the ribs.
Yeah.
And then slowly, Mia gets the person to invite more and more of themselves into the movement, where you start to seeing everything blend together. And then what you notice is, with everything moving, and that includes the broken ribs, when everything's moving together in a coordinated way, there's not too much stress on the ribs, that the ribs are actually able to move in a very safe, gentle way without causing problems. And that little movement that you're getting there helps promote the healing process, and then also helps your mindset, because you don't feel like you're broken mentally, and physically and mentally and emotionally broken. You feel more whole, and you realize that this isn't going to be the end of the world, that you are resilient and you can still do things. You want to be a little careful as they're healing.
Yeah, broken ribs are very painful.
Yeah, but life does not have to come to an end, and there are things that you can do. So yeah, it was an amazingly powerful experience, because I broke my ribs in the bicycle accident. So to see that, and how we can use this work in a very simple, gentle, but very powerful way.
Yeah.
To help the healing.
Are you doing mainly Feldenkrais work now? That's 100% of what you do, pretty much.
And it's interesting, when the gyms start to open again, then I'll have to see what's going on with Stanford, and what I may want to do, because I like working with the older population. We have a program called Senior Strong, and that's a fun group to work with, because they think, well, I'm 80 years old, how much strength can I build? And it's like, well, let's see, and let's not worry about lifting a heavy weight or a lot of weight. Let's just think about moving in a nice quality way that feels pleasant for you, and then we'll build from there. Like you said, the quality movement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what is your experience? How'd you get started working with Stanford, and what is that experience like?
That was actually Feldenkrais related, because one of my Feldenkrais friends, Gene Elvin, was teaching Feldenkrais classes at Stanford. And the person from the health improvement program, Jerry Thurman, needed somebody to teach a circuit training class. So since I had a fitness background, Jean gave me the contact information, and Jerry Thurman's just tremendous. I can't say enough good things about her. She's just one of those people with vision, compassion, and just a wonderful person to work with over at Stanford, and very, 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 like the Senior Strong class, very interested in trying new things.
Yeah.
So it worked out great there, and it's a wonderful population. It really is. I didn't know what to expect from Stanford. It's such a prestigious school and everything, and it's like, well, are people going to be a little snooty? But no, it's California laid back. It's been a great place to work.
Yeah. So Jerry Thurman is still working?
She's not running the HIP program anymore. She's actually working on special programs there. So I'm, once the pandemic's open, I'm gonna have to touch base with her again, because Mia's daughter Leora, always has wonderful ideas that may work well with the academic world. So
Wow.
it might be good to see if there's a way to connect both of them. And I think Leora is doing something with a USC right now. There's a program she's working on with them. So that's kind of exciting too.
So you like to work with the older population. If you don't mind my asking, how old are you now?
I am. Last fall, I turned 60.
Oh, 60 is a great decade. You can do whatever you want in your 60s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Mia told me, when you turn 80, life starts over again. So look forward to the 80s.
All right, I'll look forward to that my next decade. But
But
so, if Tom, if people want to contact you, how can they do that?
yeah, a good way to contact me would be they can go to www.sense, and it's sense with a 3 instead of an e.org. And that's the group I work in the South Bay. We have classes on Zoom now, and we also have nice little studio for individual private lessons. And then there's also the MBS Academy. If you go to mbsacademy.org,
Okay.
there's some of the things I do with MBS too, and as well as all the things that Mia and Leora are doing, which are really a lot of interesting programs.
So that's sense with a 3 instead of an E,
Yep.
S3NSE.org.
.org, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Terrific. So in wrapping this up, we've been talking about awareness. Sometimes I want to ask the question, how do you sell this approach to athletes? But I think you've already answered that.
Yeah.
And I think you've made it a silly question.
Yeah. Well, one thing I remember hearing throughout my life is you have the answers within you. You have all the answers you need within you.
Yeah.
And I thought, wow, that's great. That's inspiring. But then I would get stuck and I would think, how do I find these answers? What do I do? And nobody ever tells you how to find the answers. They tell you you have the answers, but they don't tell you how to get them.
Yeah.
And the Feldenkrais method is the process that you can learn, and it's definitely a skill, like running or any other activity. It's a skill that you can learn, where you learn how to ask really good questions that are specific to what you want to do, and develop the awareness, because that's where you find your answers.
Right.
You find the answers by being aware of what you're doing and how you're doing something.
That's beautiful. That really summarizes things well. And you're not talking just about some esoteric thing. You're just talking about life and a method that helps.
Yeah. Like, how long should I run for?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'm going to use my awareness. As soon as it doesn't feel good and pleasant, as soon as I don't want to do it, then I stop running. Then I start walking and doing something else. It's when we don't listen to what's going on within inside of, and we take our awareness out of it, that we get ourselves in trouble.
Right. Tom, thank you so much. It's been,
thank you, Scott. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been a beautiful conversation, and I've learned a lot from it. So
I have too. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Maybe we can do it again sometime.
Oh, yeah. I look forward to that.
All right. Thank you again, Tom.
Okay. Bye, Scott.
Bye.